Commander Rick Torres had been working with humans for 3 years now, but Maya Cross was different from all the others. She was small, quiet, and moved like she was walking through water instead of air. Most humans on the ship were loud and took up space, but Maya seemed to fold into herself whenever she sat down. The other crew members barely noticed her until she opened her mouth during their evening meals. The mess hall was where everyone gathered after their shifts. Aliens from 12 different worlds would sit together, sharing stories about battles they had fought and enemies they had killed. The Korthak warriors would slam their massive fists on the tables while describing how they had crushed rebel forces on mining colonies. The insect-like Rex would click their mandibles while recounting aerial combat over gas giant moons. Even the peaceful Vask would sometimes share tales of defending their homeworld from pirates. Maya would sit at the edge of these conversations, eating her food and listening. She never tried to interrupt or demand attention. But when someone asked her a direct question, her answers made the entire room go silent. "How many have you killed in combat?" Grendel the Korthak had asked one evening. His voice was like rocks grinding together, and his question was meant to embarrass the small human woman. Maya looked up from her meal and thought for a moment. 47 confirmed kills during the Helix campaign. 312 during the Outer Rim Rebellion. About 800 total during my time with the Death Squad units. The room went completely quiet. Even the background hum of the ship's engines seemed louder than usual. Torres felt his stomach drop. Those numbers were impossible. The Helix campaign had lasted only 6 months. The Outer Rim Rebellion had been brutal, but it was mostly small unit actions against lightly armed insurgents. And the Death Squad units were legendary among human military forces. But Torres had assumed they were just stories told to frighten enemies. Grendel laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. Small human makes big claims. Your species is known for telling tall tales to make themselves seem important. Maya smiled and went back to eating. She did not argue or get angry. She just continued her meal like nothing had happened. But Torres noticed something that made his skin crawl. Maya's hand never moved far from the weapon on her hip. Her eyes kept tracking every person who walked past their table. She sat with her back to the wall and her feet positioned so she could stand up quickly if needed. The doubt spread through the crew like a disease. Within a week, everyone was talking about the human woman who claimed to have killed more enemies than entire battle groups. The reptilian Vask started calling her the storyteller behind her back. The Rex would make clicking sounds whenever she spoke, the insect equivalent of laughter. Even some of the other humans on the ship seemed embarrassed by her claims. Torres found himself watching Maya more carefully. During combat drills, she moved with perfect precision, but so did many soldiers. When they practiced weapon maintenance, her hands worked faster than anyone else's, but that could just be experience. She scored perfectly on every tactical simulation, but the computer programs were designed for average soldiers, not elite warriors. What bothered Torres most was how normal Maya seemed. She read books during her free time. She kept a small plant in her quarters and watered it every morning. She helped newer crew members learn the ship's systems without being asked. She seemed like the kind of person who would rescue injured animals, not someone who had ended hundreds of lives. The whispers grew louder over the following weeks. Maya had to have heard them, but she never responded. She continued her duties with the same quiet efficiency. She still joined the evening conversations in the mess hall, still answered questions when asked. But Torres noticed that fewer people were asking her questions now. Everything changed when they received a distress call from the Belmont system. Pirates had attacked a civilian transport ship carrying diplomats from multiple worlds. The passenger liner was called the Harmony's Dream, and it held over 200 civilians, including children and elderly passengers from species that had never seen combat. Captain Walsh called an emergency meeting of the senior staff. The holographic display showed the pirate vessel attached to the civilian ship like a parasite. Intelligence reports indicated that the pirates were from the Crimson Fleet, a group of raiders who had been terrorizing the outer systems for years. Standard rescue protocol, Walsh announced. We attempt negotiation first, then coordinate with other nearby vessels for a joint assault if talks fail. Torres nodded along with the other officers. It was a good plan, one that would minimize casualties and give the hostages the best chance of survival. But Maya stepped forward from her position near the back of the room. "Permission to speak, Captain," she said. Her voice was different now, carrying an edge that Torres had never heard before. "Go ahead, Lieutenant. Those protocols will get people killed. The Crimson Fleet doesn't negotiate. They're not interested in ransom or prisoner exchanges. They take what they want and eliminate witnesses." Captain Walsh frowned. "How can you be certain of this, Lieutenant?" "Because I've fought them before. During the Outer Rim deployment, my unit was tasked with eliminating Crimson Fleet operations in the Vega sector. They're not ordinary pirates, Captain. They're former military personnel who went rogue after the peace accords. They know our tactics, our procedures, our weaknesses." Torres watched Maya as she spoke. Something was happening to her that he could not explain. The quiet, gentle woman seemed to be growing larger, more solid. Her posture changed from relaxed to predatory. Her voice became crisp and commanding. Even her breathing seemed different, slower and more controlled. "What do you recommend, Lieutenant?" Walsh asked. Maya was quiet for a moment, her eyes focused on something beyond the walls of the briefing room. "Let me handle this personally, Captain. I can end this situation quickly with minimal risk to the hostages." "Cross, you're not going alone," Torres said. "We have procedures for hostage rescue." "Operations?" Maya turned to look at him, and Torres felt ice run through his veins. The woman looking back at him was not the same person who had been watering plants and reading books. This was something else entirely, something that had been hiding beneath the surface. "Stay in orbit, Commander. Monitor communications. If I'm not back in 2 hours, destroy the pirate vessel with everything you have." She turned and walked toward the exit, her movement fluid and purposeful. Torres noticed that she was already reaching for her equipment, her hands moving to check weapons and gear that he had never seen her carry before. The briefing room door closed behind her, and Torres realized that he was about to discover whether Maya Cross was the greatest liar in the galaxy or something far more dangerous than any of them had imagined. Torres stood in the command center watching the tactical display as Maya's small shuttle approached the pirate vessel. The Crimson Fleet ship was massive compared to her tiny craft, bristling with weapons and armor plating that could withstand direct hits from military-grade cannons. The civilian transport was locked against its hull like prey caught in a predator's jaws. "She's not requesting docking clearance," the communications officer reported. "The shuttle is maintaining distance from both vessels." Captain Walsh stood beside Torres, his face grim. "What is she planning?" Torres had no answer. On the display, Maya's shuttle had stopped moving toward the pirate ship. Instead, it was holding position about 50 meters away from the hull. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the shuttle's cargo bay doors opened. "Is she launching an attack probe?" Walsh asked. "No, sir," the sensor operator replied. "I'm reading a single human life sign leaving the shuttle. She's in a combat suit, moving directly toward the pirate vessel." Torres felt his blood turn cold. Maya was spacewalking across the gap between the ships. Using nothing but a personal propulsion unit and her combat armor, it was suicide. The pirates would detect her approach and cut her down with defensive weapons before she could reach their hull, but the defensive weapons never fired. Maya moved through the void like a ghost, her suit's systems running so quietly that the pirate sensors couldn't get a clean lock on her position. She reached the hull of the enemy vessel and began working on something near what looked like a maintenance hatch. "She's cutting through their armor," the sensor operator announced. "How is she doing that?" "Those plates are designed to withstand PLASMA cannon fire." Torres watched the display as Maya worked. She was using some kind of cutting tool that sliced through the reinforced hull plating like it was paper. Within minutes, she had opened a hole large enough for her to crawl through. Then she disappeared inside the pirate vessel. "All communications from the pirate ship have stopped," the communications officer reported. "They're not responding to our hails or sending any transmissions." "What about their internal systems?" Walsh asked. Still active, but something strange is happening. I'm detecting power fluctuations throughout their vessel. Lights are going out in sections, life support systems are cycling on and off. Torres stared at the tactical display. The pirate ship had over 40 crew members, all of them armed and experienced fighters. Maya was one person with limited ammunition and no backup. Yet somehow she was moving through their vessel like a virus, systematically shutting down their systems. I'm detecting weapons fire inside the pirate ship, the sensor operator said. Multiple energy discharges, but they're not lasting long. Each burst is followed by periods of silence. How long has she been aboard? Walsh asked. 17 minutes, sir. Torres tried to imagine what was happening inside that ship. Maya had described the Crimson Fleet as former military personnel. Trained soldiers who would know how to respond to a boarding action? They should have been able to coordinate their defenses, trap her in the corridors, overwhelm her with superior numbers. But the power fluctuations suggested something else entirely. Life signs are dropping on the pirate vessel, the sensor operator announced quietly. I count 38 active signatures down from 42. 4 casualties in 20 minutes, Walsh muttered. That's faster than a full assault team. The Torres was watching the numbers continue to drop. 38 became 35, then 32, then 28. Each decrease was followed by a brief burst of weapons fire, then silence. Maya was moving through the ship like death itself, eliminating targets with mechanical precision. Captain, the communications officer called out. I'm receiving a transmission from the civilian transport. The passengers are reporting that the pirates guarding them have abandoned their posts. Torres felt his heart racing. The pirates were pulling back, concentrating their forces to deal with the threat that had boarded their vessel. But it was too late. The life sign counter continued to drop. 28 became 22, then 18, then 14. She's not just killing them, Torres realized. She's hunting them. The tactical display showed Maya's position as a moving dot within the pirate vessel. She was not moving randomly or desperately. Her path through the ship was calculated, methodical. She was cutting off escape routes, forcing the pirates into predetermined positions where she could eliminate them efficiently. 10 life signs remaining, the sensor operator announced. All concentrated near the bridge section. Torres could picture the scene. The surviving pirates had barricaded themselves in the most secure part of their ship, probably hoping to make a last stand or negotiate for their lives. But Maya was not interested in negotiation. She was there to eliminate the threat completely. Multiple weapons discharges near the bridge, the sensor operator reported. Energy readings are off the charts. They're using heavy weapons, military grade stuff. For a moment, Torres thought the pirates might have a chance. Heavy weapons could penetrate combat armor, could bring down even the most skilled soldier. But then the weapons fire stopped, and the life sign counter dropped to 0. All pirate life signs have been eliminated, the sensor operator announced. The ship is clear. Torres stared at the display in disbelief. Maya had eliminated over 40 trained fighters in less than 30 minutes. She had done it alone, without backup, without support. It was impossible, but the evidence was right there on the tactical screens. This is Lieutenant Cross, Maya's voice came over the communications system. Pirate vessel is secure. All hostile forces have been neutralized, requesting medical teams for the civilian passengers. Her voice was calm, professional, like she was reporting the completion of a routine maintenance task. There was no excitement, no emotion, no indication that she had just accomplished something that should have required an entire battle group. Medical teams are standing by, Walsh responded. What's the condition of the hostages? All civilians are alive and unharmed. Some minor injuries from the initial attack, but nothing serious. The pirates didn't have time to harm them. Torres looked at Captain Walsh. She did it. She actually did it. Get a boarding party ready, Walsh ordered. I want to see what happened over there. 20 minutes later, Torres was walking through the corridors of the pirate vessel, and he understood why Maya had been so quiet about her capabilities. The scene inside the ship was like something from a nightmare. Bodies lay scattered throughout the corridors, but these were not the chaotic casualties of a firefight. Each death was precise, calculated, efficient. Some pirates had been killed with single shots to vital organs. Others showed signs of close combat, broken bones and severed arteries that spoke of someone who knew exactly how to end a life quickly and quietly. The patterns of blood and damage told a story of systematic elimination, of someone who had turned killing into an art form. Maya stood in the center of the ship's main corridor, calmly checking her equipment. Her combat suit was barely damaged. Her weapons were clean and properly maintained. She looked like she had just finished a training exercise, not a battle for the lives of over 200 civilians. "How?" Torres asked her. Maya looked up at him, and for a moment he saw something ancient in her eyes. "Experience, Commander." Lots and lots of experience. She walked past him toward the civilian transport, leaving Torres to stare at the carnage she had created. The doubt was gone now, replaced by something much worse. Maya Cross had not been lying about her kill count. If anything, she had been modest about her capabilities, and she was just one human among billions. The atmosphere aboard the Meridian changed completely after the pirate incident. Where once there had been whispers and doubt, now there was respectful silence whenever Maya walked through the corridors. The Korthic warriors who had mocked her before now gave her wide berth, their eyes tracking her movement with the wariness of predators recognizing a superior hunter. Even Grendel, who had called her a liar, now nodded respectfully when she passed, but Torres found himself more troubled than ever. The scene aboard the pirate vessel haunted his dreams. He had seen battlefields before, had witnessed the aftermath of military actions across dozen worlds. But what Maya had done was different. It was not the chaos of combat or the desperate violence of survival. It was something else entirely. Something that spoke of skills honed through years of practice. 3 days after the rescue, Torres found Maya in the observation deck. She was standing at the large viewport looking out at the stars as they streaked past in hyperspace. Her reflection in the reinforced glass looked ghostly, translucent, like she was already fading away. "Commander," she said without turning around. "I've been expecting you." Torres stepped up beside her, close enough to see the faint scars on her hands and arms that he had never noticed before. "I need to understand what happened back there." "You saw what happened. Pirates took hostages. I eliminated the threat." That's not what I mean, and you know it." Torres turned to face her. "How did you do it? How did one person eliminate over 40 trained fighters without taking a single hit?" Maya was quiet for a long moment, her eyes still focused on the stars. "Tell me, Commander, what do you know about human military history? The standard information. Your species has been fighting wars for thousands of years. You've only achieved interstellar travel in the last century. We've been perfecting the art of killing for over 10,000 years, Maya said quietly. While other species were developing art and philosophy, humans were developing warfare. We turned violence into science, Commander. We studied it, refined it, made it efficient." She turned to look at him, and Torres saw something in her eyes that made him want to step back. "Do you know what makes humans different from other species? You're adaptable, creative, you don't give up easily." "We're apex predators," Maya said. "Every other intelligent species in the galaxy evolved from prey animals or scavengers. Herbivores who learned to use tools, carrion eaters who developed technology, but humans evolved from hunters. We spent millions of years learning how to track, how to kill, how to survive by ending the lives of other creatures." Torres felt a chill run down his spine. "You're talking about evolution that happened long before civilization." "Evolution doesn't stop, Commander. It just changes direction. When humans developed civilization, we didn't stop being predators. We just found new prey." Maya reached into her jacket and pulled out a small data drive. "This is folder 1. Torres stared at the device. It looked ordinary, like any of the thousands of data storage units used throughout the ship. "Folder 1? Of what? My complete service record? Every mission, every kill, every tactical analysis? Everything from my first deployment to last week." She held out the drive. Take it, review it. Then decide if you still doubt what I'm capable of. Torres hesitated. Something in Maya's tone suggested that once he took the drive, there would be no going back to the comfortable ignorance he had enjoyed before. What's in folders 2 through 57? Maya's smile was sharp and cold. Those are for species that can handle the truth about what humans become when we stop pretending to be civilized. Torres took the drive, feeling its weight in his palm. It was heavier than he had expected, like it was full of lead instead of data. Why show me this? Why not just let me wonder? Because you're my commanding officer, and you need to understand what you're working with? Most species see humans as chaotic, unpredictable. They think we're dangerous because we're reckless. Or desperate. But that's not what makes us dangerous. What does? We're dangerous because we're very, very good at killing, and we've had a lot of practice. Maya turned back to the viewport. The Crimson Fleet pirates were former military personnel. They had training, experience, good equipment. They thought they knew how to fight. But they learned their tactics fighting other civilized species, creatures that follow rules and protocols. Torres looked down at the data drive in his hand. And humans don't follow rules? We follow the only rule that matters: win at any cost. Every other consideration is secondary to survival and victory. The pirates expected me to move like a soldier, to follow standard boarding procedures, to give them chances to surrender or negotiate. Instead, I moved like what I am, which is a predator hunting prey. Maya's reflection in the viewport looked more solid now, more present. I studied their ship's layout during the approach. I identified their weak points, their escape routes, their likely defensive positions. I planned my route to maximize efficiency and minimize their ability to coordinate a response. Torres felt sick. You're talking about it like a science experiment, because that's what it was. Human military doctrine is built on the systematic study of how to kill efficiently. We have entire universities dedicated to the theory and practice of warfare. We have researchers who spend their lives studying the most effective ways to end human life. Then we apply those techniques to other species. Maya turned away from the viewport and walked toward the exit. Read the files, Commander. Learn what your human crew members are really capable of when the situation requires it. Then ask yourself if you want that capability on your side, or if you'd prefer to face it as an enemy. She paused at the door. And remember, I'm not special. I'm just one human among billions. We all carry the same potential for violence. The only difference is how much training we've received and how many opportunities we've had to practice. The door closed behind her, leaving Torres alone with the data drive and the weight of what he had learned. He looked out at the stars and wondered how many other species had made the same mistake the pirates had made. How many had underestimated humanity's capacity for violence until it was too late. The drive felt heavier in his hand, like it was pulling him toward some truth he was not sure he wanted to discover, but he knew he had to read it. He had to understand what Maya Cross really was, and what that said about the human species as a whole. Outside the viewport, the stars continued their eternal dance, beautiful and distant, and completely indifferent to the predators that moved between them, hunting in the darkness of space. Torres spent the next 3 days in his quarters reading through the contents of Maya's service record. Each file opened a window into a world he had never imagined existed. Human military operations were documented with scientific precision. Every kill analyzed and cataloged like specimens in a laboratory. Maya's first deployment had been to the Helix campaign, a 6-month operation to suppress a rebellion on a mining colony. The files showed tactical reports, environmental assessments, and something called target acquisition protocols. Each of her 47 confirmed kills was documented with clinical detail: range, wind speed, ammunition type, time to target, elimination. The records included video footage from her rifle scope, showing targets dropping at distances that seemed impossible, but what disturbed Torres most was the methodical nature of it all. Maya had not been a soldier caught up in the chaos of battle. She had been a hunter, selecting targets with careful precision, eliminating them with minimal ammunition expenditure. Her efficiency ratings were consistently perfect, her accuracy measurements beyond what most species could achieve with computer assistance. The Outer Rim. Rebellion files painted an even more disturbing picture. Maya had commanded a reconnaissance unit tasked with eliminating enemy leadership. 312 kills over 18 months, most achieved through infiltration and assassination. The mission reports described operations that made Torres question everything he thought. He knew about human military ethics, enemy commanders eliminated in their sleep, supply convoys ambushed and destroyed without warning, psychological warfare campaigns designed to paralyze entire enemy units with fear. Maya's unit had not been fighting a war in any traditional sense. They had been conducting a systematic campaign of terror designed to break the enemy's will to fight. The tactical analyses were the most chilling part. Each operation was studied afterward, with researchers examining every aspect of the mission to improve future efficiency. Kill ratios, ammunition expenditure, time to target elimination, psychological impact on surviving enemies. Human military. Scientists were treating warfare like any other field of study, constantly refining their methods based on empirical data. 2 weeks after Torres had read Maya's files, the Meridian received an emergency distress call that would change everything he thought. He understood about humanity's place in the galaxy. The message came from Sanctuary Station, a massive orbital platform that housed refugees from 17 different species. The station served as a neutral ground where displaced populations could find safety, while their worlds recovered from various disasters. This is Sanctuary Station calling any vessels. In range, the transmission crackled with static and interference. We are under attack by unknown entities. Our defense systems have been compromised. We have over 50,000 civilians on board, including children and elderly. Please respond. Captain Walsh ordered the Meridian to change course immediately. But when they arrived at the station, they found something that defied explanation. The orbital platform was intact, its hull undamaged, but its lights were flickering in strange patterns. Ships docked at the station were drifting away from their moorings, their crews apparently abandoning their vessels. "What are we looking at?" Walsh asked the sensor operator. "Unknown, sir. I'm detecting massive energy readings from the station, but they're not following any pattern one recognizes. The energy signatures are moving through the station systems, like they're alive." Torres felt ice in his veins. "Living energy? That's the only way I can describe it, sir. These entities seem to be possessing the station's electronic systems, turning them against the inhabitants." On the main display, they could see the station's defensive weapons firing randomly into space. Interior lights were strobing in patterns. That hurt to look at directly. Even the artificial gravity system seemed to be malfunctioning as debris floated past the viewports in impossible trajectories. "Conventional weapons won't work," Walsh said grimly. "If these entities can possess our systems, they can turn our own weapons against us." "Permission to speak, Captain." Maya's voice came from the back of the command center. Torres turned to see her standing calmly while everyone else was showing signs of panic. "Go ahead, Lieutenant. This isn't the first time humans have encountered entities like this. During the Void War, we faced similar energy beings that could inhabit our technology. We developed countermeasures." "What kind of countermeasures?" Walsh asked. Maya stepped forward, and Torres saw that familiar transformation beginning. The quiet, unassuming woman was becoming something else, something that radiated dangerous competence, the kind that work when you can't rely on technology. "Explain." "These entities evolved to counter logical, systematic approaches to warfare. They can predict technological responses, adapt to conventional tactics. But they've never learned to counter human irrationality." Maya's smile was sharp and cold. "They don't understand chaos theory, random action, or the human ability to make decisions based on intuition rather than logic." Torres watched as Maya began outlining her plan. She would take a team of volunteers, all human, and board the station using what she called analog warfare. No electronic systems, no advanced weapons, no technology that could be compromised. Instead, they would use primitive tools and human psychology to fight entities that existed as pure energy. "You're talking about fighting gods with sticks and stones," Walsh said. "I'm talking about fighting predictable entities with unpredictable tactics," Maya replied. "These beings have spent eons learning to counter rational military doctrine. They've never faced humans who are willing to embrace chaos as a weapon." The mission began 2 hours later. Maya led a team of 12 human volunteers aboard the station using a mechanical docking system that required no electronic controls. They carried chemical explosives, mechanical triggers, and weapons that operated on simple physical principles. No computers, no sensors, no communication systems that could be compromised. Torres monitored their progress from the Meridian's command center, watching as Maya's team moved through the station like ghosts. The energy entities tried to counter their movements, but they could not predict human actions that were based on random decisions and emotional responses rather than logical planning. Maya's team used fear as a weapon, triggering explosions in patterns that seemed chaotic but were actually designed to drive the entities into prepared traps. They used anger and desperation to fuel actions that no computer could predict. They made decisions based on gut instinct and emotional impulse, creating a form of warfare that existed outside the parameters of rational conflict. "How is this possible?" the sensor operator asked as they watched the energy reading shift and change throughout the station. "Humans don't fight like other species," Torres said, finally understanding what he had been seeing in Maya's files. "They don't follow logical patterns or predictable strategies. They adapt to whatever the situation requires, even if it means abandoning everything they've been taught." The battle lasted 6 hours. Maya's team moved through the station like a virus, using psychological warfare and chaotic tactics to confuse and trap the energy entities. They created isolation chambers using nothing but mechanical systems and human ingenuity. They used the entities' own predictable responses against them, turning their logical nature into a weakness. When it was over, the energy beings had been contained in specially prepared isolation units, neutralized not through superior firepower, but through superior understanding of psychology and chaos theory. The station systems were restored, the refugees were safe, and 50,000 lives had been saved by 12 humans with primitive weapons and unpredictable tactics. As Torres watched the rescue teams evacuate the remaining civilians, he realized that he had been asking the wrong questions about humanity. The issue was not whether humans were dangerous or whether they could be trusted. The question was whether the galaxy could afford to face the universe without them. "Commander," Maya said, appearing beside him as he watched the rescue operations. "You understand now?" "I think I do." Torres looked at the human woman who had just saved 50,000 lives using tactics that defied conventional military wisdom. "You're not just soldiers, you're problem solvers." "We're whatever the situation requires us to be," Maya said quietly. "Warriors when war is needed, protectors when protection is required. Monsters when monsters are the only thing that can stop greater monsters." Torres watched as the human volunteers helped evacuate injured civilians, their hands gentle and careful despite having recently wielded weapons with deadly precision. "How do you live with that kind of responsibility?" "The same way anyone lives with responsibility, Commander. One day at a time, doing what needs to be done." Maya looked out at the stars visible through the station's viewports. "The galaxy is full of threats that other species can't handle. Things that exist between dimensions, artificial intelligences that have decided organic life is a mistake, entities that feed on the suffering of innocent people. And humans fight all of them?" "We fight whatever needs fighting," Maya said. "We adapt to whatever the enemy requires. If they're technological, we become more technological. If they're primitive, we become more primitive. If they're logical, we become chaotic. If they're chaotic, we become more organized." Torres felt a strange sense of comfort settling over him. "You're saying humans are the galaxy's immune system?" "We're the species that stands between civilization and the things that would destroy it," Maya confirmed. Not because we're the strongest or the smartest, but because we're the most adaptable. We become whatever is needed to eliminate the threat. As the Meridian prepared to leave the station, Torres found himself looking at his human crew members with new eyes. Each one carried the same potential for violence that Maya did, the same ability to adapt and overcome impossible odds. They were living weapons evolved through millennia of warfare, refined by countless generations of conflict, but they were also protectors, guardians who stood between the innocent and the predators that stalked the darkness between stars. They were humanity's gift to the galaxy, creatures who had learned to fight monsters by becoming monsters themselves, then choosing to use that power to protect rather than destroy. The drive labeled Folder 1 still sat in Torres' quarters, a reminder of the truth he had discovered. Humanity was not the heroes of every story, but they were the guardians who made it possible for other species to have stories at all. And sometimes that was enough. In the end, Torres realized the galaxy was not safer because humans were good. It was safer because humans were very, very good at being whatever the situation required them to be. And in a universe full of threats that wanted to hurt innocent people, that was exactly what was needed.